Hello everyone, my name is Ioana Salmonidis. Welcome to Victorian Opera's web series 15 Years of New Opera. Creating opera for children, young people and community members has formed part of Victorian Opera's artistic mission since the company was founded in 2005. In fact, the very first work Victorian Opera staged was a youth production. In the last 15 years, Victorian Opera has commissioned a number of new works that feature both young artists as well as youth and community choruses on stage. Works such as Richard Mills' The Pied Piper and Calvin Bowman's The Magic Pudding the Opera have not only brought joy to regional communities across Victoria, but have acted as a stepping stone for young singers at the beginning of their performance careers. I spoke with Victorian Opera's artistic director Richard Mills and opera director Cameron Menzies, who both reflect on the value of opera for young people and the community. I also caught up with Eliza Bennett O'Connor, a young singer at the very beginning of her career, who has been part of Victorian Opera's family since she was 16. Why is it important to create opera for children and young people?
I think, for several reasons. One is that Victorian Opera serves the whole community, and of course that includes a very important component, that is children and young people. So that's part of our mission, and to reimagine the potential of opera for everybody. So children are a very important part of that, everybody. But also I think it's really important to give young people the experience of opera and the magic of singing. And singing is something that an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old can do together. And the projects that we've done, like Magic Pudding and Pied Piper, for example, the people from the community, the children and the people from the community that were involved, were sharing the stage with our very fine young artists. So they got to sing alongside real singers with a real professional orchestral ensemble on a set. So they were actually in an opera, but an opera that was specially crafted so that they could participate in it and enjoy it. And that experience will stay with them. It'll be a formative experience for young people. And hopefully for older people too. It'll open a portal to the art form of opera and encourage them to come in and share this wonderful art form with us.
I think it's really important to create opera for young people for both sides of it. I think for performers who want to perform in it and for people who want to come and see. I think it instantly gets rid of that feeling that opera is this elite thing and it's for other people and it's what other people do. And I think it's also about representation. You know, if you don't see yourself somewhere, you don't know you can do it or that it even exists. So I think that is instantly broken down when people come in that are watching themselves perform or their own age group perform in an art form that may not be as familiar to them. It breaks that down really, really, really quickly, and it allows those groups or both sides, you know, the performer and the audience, to have that shared experience. And I think that that only serves opera and the community.
Grand procession of the Society of Good will pass by here at 2:30. Let this be understood. As we wait for news to spread, let us find a place to hide and spring on them like lions. Wooden thieves woe betide.
An official grand procession of the Society of Good will pass by here at 2:30. Let this be understood.
What value does community inclusion bring to the art form, and why is it important that we do it?
Community inclusion is important. Call me old-fashioned, but we do have a responsibility to the Victorian taxpayer because we are funded by the government to make opera for and with Victorians. And so we have a special duty of care, I think, to the community to enrich their lives, to show them something wonderful. And this goes through as a thread through everything we do, through our audience development, through our presence now online, and also for the work we specifically create to involve people in our art form as participants in a very carefully curated way, so that they can get an experience that's somehow joyful and interesting out of it and be part of our family.
How's the Pied Piper a work for the community and young people?
Well, for example, in the opera one of the operas I've written for the company to undertake this kind of work, the Pied Piper, was written very carefully with many community members in mind. For example, the children. There's the youngest children, who are the rats, and they have great fun with their little tails and pinky ears running around causing trouble. And then there's the older children, who are the school children. And then there are the community, who can be anybody. We had, a guy who had a pizza shop in one of the productions in one of the towns. So it provides a window of opportunity for everyone to be involved in a way that contributes to the telling of the story, alongside, of course, our young, very talented young professionals. So that the audience is very, very much part of the show, but it's curated in such a way that that they're invited in. They're not somehow sidelined. They're an important part of the action.
Yes, oh yes, yes indeed. We are ready for me. Yes, yes, oh let's go. We are ready for
things you need to keep in mind when directing an opera that not only has a cast that includes young people or community members, but is also for a young audience?
Yeah, I find the best successes always happen when you take everyone with you. In any regard, in any rehearsal room, no matter what, a main stage or a youth opera or a community opera or anything like that, you have to take everyone with you. And therefore, everyone is developing at their own speed, but you have to make sure that the room is moving at the same pace for everybody. Otherwise, you're going to lose people and you're going to leave people behind. And you can't afford to do that in any rehearsal space. But the other thing that I think you need to be very mindful of is with youth casts, is pace. You have to keep the pace up for them and the audience. Nothing can drag. You also have to be careful of oversaturating a young cast. You get to sort of the end, you generally work in a 3-hour call, and you get to the sort of 2.5, you have your regular breaks, but you sort of get to about the 2.5 hour mark, and you can see them sort of, they're full of what you have given them. And, I think breaking them and letting it sort of rest in them and let them think about it because inevitably it always comes back the next time you do it better. But I think it's pace, and I think it's also about always having in mind clarity of what the story is, so that, when you're dealing with people that are coming to this potentially for the first time with story sort of telling and music combined, you have to make sure that all elements are clear.
Does the preparation you undertake when directing a work differ when the opera is being performed by a younger cast?
I don't think I prepare anything differently in terms of my work on a show necessarily for the audience. I mean, I always have who the audience is in mind when I'm preparing something, but I don't prepare myself differently. I think you come at it differently. I think there's a lot more, I feel like when I'm directing youth productions or kind of community productions, there's a lot more showing. So I have to be on the floor. I very rarely sit down anyway, but I have to be on the floor a lot and showing what I want and explaining it at the same time, because everyone learns very differently. And, I would never probably get on the floor and on a main stage and show someone what I wanted to do. But in terms of allowing a young audience to feel free and be bold and to jump off, you kind of have to be the one that jumps off first. So I find a lot of demonstration helps in me getting a younger cast together. You have to let them own what they're doing. You can give them as much as you can, and you can instruct them and you can rehearse it. But if they don't feel like they own it on opening night, it never comes out the right way.
Talking to me, friend.
I ain't your friend.
I was being pretend. I was being sarcastic.
He was being sarcastic. Fantastic. You wanna get in our face.
Ha!
Gross. That's about the last place we wanna get into. Ha!
Wanna bet?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
What?
Where am I?
You're in Grumptown. You're in Grumptown, where no one is welcome. Welcome to Grumptown, where no one is welcome. You're in Grumptown, where no one is welcome. Welcome to Grumptown, where no one is welcome. Listen to this guy, he doesn't need to be told.
Eliza, you have been involved in many of Victorian Opera's youth programs, such as Voice and the youth productions. How old were you when you first joined Victorian Opera's youth programs, and what have you gained from these experiences?
Yeah, my first youth experience was when I was 13. I did a weekend workshop with Simon Kenway, I think, and I managed to get my way into that program, even though it was for 16 and up. My dad happened to call up and said, look, she's a little bit younger, but her birthday's coming up. And whoever was on admin just assumed it was my 16th birthday coming up. So I got in the door and it was a great weekend. But I started Voice, I would have been 16, year 9, what is that, 15 or 16, I think. And yeah, the first youth opera I did was the same year as when I joined Voice, which was The Grumpiest Boy in the World.
As a young singer who is working towards a performance career, why do you think it's important to create opera for young people?
Oh, I think it's such a different world. It's such a beautiful world, but it's such a different world. And I think getting that exposure as early as possible is just, it's so important. And I mean, working in a place like Victorian Opera where it's not limited because you're younger, it's not restricted in any way. It's very much as it would be, let's say, in the adult real world. It's very much, it's a real life experience, and it makes sort of, it creates a sort of smoother transition into doing any other sort of performing. I have done, like Cunning Little Vixen, which was a professional, there was youth in the show, but not a youth show. And there was no difference between those experiences. And I think having done those youth shows prior to that really set me up to, just for it to all be normal and exciting, but nothing shocking at all. And yeah, it just sort of, it shapes how you, address yourself in the rehearsal room and how you audition. And yeah, it just sort of, it sets you up. Yeah.
What have you gained from working alongside people like Richard Mills, Cameron Menzies, and other professional singers?
It's such a big question because the answers are endless. Like there's just so much, and Angus Grant with voice, and I remember we had Antoinette Halloran run a masterclass for voice for sort of singing solo, and I think again it comes back to sort of replicating those real life professional scenarios and sort of seeing what it takes. And I think as well the honesty that comes from those sort of mentors. I find working with Cam is super exciting. He's hilarious, and I've done a few shows with Cam now, and he's one of the few directors that I've worked with that is able to laugh at himself, which is always quite entertaining, where he'll say something, you'll watch him pause, and you'll watch him go, yeah, that made no sense to me either. Don't worry, we'll move on. And I find his I find working with a range of directors in that way. They're all so different, and they all create such beautiful work. And I guess learning the language of directors, and each of them is individual in that way. So I think again the exposure to so many different people with different skill sets like that is just it's so important. And Richard he's amazing, and I have this really vivid memory that I've never been able to clear. It was from Grumpiest Boy in the World, and so my first opera, and that was just an amazing experience. But I remember very clearly it was our sitz probe in the Malt House, and I remember being very, oh my gosh, Richard Mills is in the audience, his dog Buddy is in the audience, it's the real deal, we've really got to. And I remember at the end of the sitz probe, he hadn't written any notes, and he walked down and he just went for it. He was able to say the bassoon in bar 1 needed to do this, and I think the clarinet in bar 8 played an A flat, not an A, and he just went. And I remember Libby sort of saying, do you need the singers at all? And no, just the orchestra. But just the fact that he'd written none of it down, he'd heard it all, it was all just, it was there. And I just remember sitting there thinking, oh, I don't want to go. This is quite entertaining. This is fascinating. Yeah, things like that.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Next time, we explore some of the collaborations behind Victorian Opera's commissioned works. Until then, take care.